Hi, and welcome to another show. Another talk, another day. Another day about talking about money. Today we're going to talk about, well, you lived long enough to have, and you had enough money to live long enough, and well, you're still living. And not only that, but now somebody's taking care of you. It's called the sandwich generation. And if you're a parent, let me just tell you, if you've got a parent that is, well, they'd always be older than you, wouldn't they? So if you have a parent and you find yourself that you've got another generation, there's grandma, there is a potential for you to be that sandwich, that person to get squeezed in the middle. Well, we're going to talk all about that. And I have a very special guest. So right now I have two things that I'm going to ask you to do. One is, if you like this, you know that this is information somebody needs. Don't keep it to yourself. Share and like it, and make sure you subscribe. Oh, that was two, maybe three. Okay, the other thing, I can't count. Who knows? The other thing is, stay tuned because we'll be right back.
Linda gave me the courage, the confidence to move forward.
And after I was finished with Linda K's training, I was at the next level.
It's Linda K. When you trust that piece of you that says, I got something to give, I have something to say, you know you've got something to do.
Get on your feet, shake your hands in the air. Welcome to the stage, Linda K.
And we are back. Now, I told you that I have a very, very exciting guest for us. And some of you will go, well, of course she's really good because she's got this Midwest common sense coming in from Indiana. She does reside in Orange County, and we're going to talk about things that I like to talk about today. Now, I don't always get that opportunity, but we're going to talk about real estate because it's something that we share in common. Now, she doesn't do commercial real estate, and I am beginning to do more and more residential, but there is a reason why she's starting to do this. For a long time, she's been working under the real brokerage. And we're going to ask her, are there any other brokerages that could be like not so real? I don't know. I don't know the answer to that. But she also hosts a podcast, a weekly show called Always Ageless. Now, that reference to always ageless will hopefully give you a clue, give you a hint, give you a reason to keep listening, because I'm going to bring her on. She is your go-to resource for seniors, guest and senior care, professionals, business owners, children of aging parents. And we also have one other thing in common. Her mom is about 10 years older than my mom, and her mom is 104. Welcome to the stage today, Valerie Van de Zilver. Hello, Valerie. Welcome. I'm going to try that again. Welcome. There we go.
Thank you very much for hosting me. It's quite an introduction. Thank you.
So, Valerie, how long have you been in real estate? It says like 30 years, 50 years. How time flies when you're having fun. Were
Yes.
you always doing real estate? Was that your thing that you did after you raised your kids?
No, actually, it wasn't. I grew up wanting to be a missionary nurse in Africa.
Wow.
And at some point, I started a candy striper program in my little Midwest town in northern Indiana. And that's all I ever wanted to do. And when
that's so funny you should say something like that, because we could be similar aged. I don't know. I'm only guessing here. But, you know, we grew up with candy stripes, and we grew up thinking, wow, that's something I want to do when I grow up. Wow, that's something that I could get excited about. And somehow or another, life interrupts, and we do other things, and we move off to other stuff. But I know women today that started in the candy stripe business. That's all volunteer, in case any of y'all have forgotten what a candy striper was. And they came in these candy red striped outfits, right? And they were like, I could wear that. I mean, I could have just as easily worn a Farrell's outfit, you know, the one that you run around with the ice cream all the time, or better than, you know, that would be far better than, say, flipping a burger at Burger King. So you could have it your way. But, you know, when we think about candy stars, they have like a long generation of this. And we grew up as women really understanding the idea of nurturing, because we had parents that were in that society, in that age group. And if you grew up in the 50s and the 60s, parents were thinking, mom's at home and dad's out working, and you do volunteer work, and community was important. We've tended to get away from things like that. But how did that shape you to what you began to do?
Oh, it was my life. So being in the Midwest, as you probably know, we were what we call the Bible Belt. You know, if the church doors were open, we were there. So
Bible thumping, I'm very familiar with it.
yes, absolutely. So we grew up with we were taught that if you want your life to be full of joy, that means Jesus, others, and then you. So we were always supposed to be giving to
Oh, you got that joy down
in
in
your heart.
I remember
Right,
it. Of course.
So my
Right.
sister says that that's not in the Bible, but nevertheless, that's how we were raised. So we're supposed to always we were raised to give a life of service, always take care of other people, always do things for other people. And
Correct.
my mom is absolutely the epitome of that. She has her whole life is all about doing things for other people. So that's all I ever wanted to do was be a missionary nurse. Then someday I was somewhere where I heard a story that the witch doctors will pull your fingernails out.
Okay, that's it. I'm out. I like my fingernails. You're not pulling my nails out.
Exactly. So I decided I wasn't quite so sure I wanted to do that. The problem is that's all I ever wanted to be. So I moved to California. My sister graduated from college. I moved to California, got off the airplane in LAX, and there were palm trees. Oh my gosh, I could fall in love with this place. So I did.
What is there not to love?
Yep. I was here for a weekend. I went home on a Tuesday, came back out to California on Friday, and that was the end of it. So I had no plan B. And for a while I did other things. I had other jobs and things, but one day I answered an ad in the newspaper that ages me for someone who's nice and friendly and good with people. And I thought I probably am that. So I was fortunate enough, blessed enough to get a job as a hostess in a new home community here in Irvine. Now, at that point in time, the women or the girls or guys who worked as a hostess in a new home sales office didn't have to be licensed. So I was able to get that job without having my real estate license. And the man who I worked for, bless his heart, took me under his wing. And honestly, Linda, without him, I have no idea where I would be today. So he took me under his wing.
Well, you would have been led to somebody that would have helped you because, as we close one door, another one opens and there's always somebody there to greet you.
Well, and I was fortunate that he did. So he taught me into getting my license. He taught me what I needed to know at that time and kind of nurtured me along. And from that point on, then I stayed in the new home community, the new home business for many years. And that's where I got my start in real estate. So I was very young. I was 21, barely 21, and got my license when I was 21. And then I worked for that builder. And as you know, in new home communities, when they sell one out, then they move to another one.
That's right.
And I worked for builders, some of the largest builders in California, where at one point in time, I was responsible for 36 different subdivisions, which
Holy
is
cow.
such a great education because as you also know, is when you work in new homes, you only can sell what you have. So you have to learn to sell that house, no
Right.
matter if it backs up to the freeway or it's on a busy street or it's overpriced or it's the last one left and nobody wants it. So I learned how to market what I had. And I was very fortunate that the builders I worked for brought me along and I was a sales manager. And I'm still to this date, the only female who has ever won the award for salesperson of the year and sales manager of the year. And when I won that award, it was the salesman of the year award.
Ooh.
So I'm the only girl who was the salesman of the year and the sales manager of the year. So
that is quite the moniker. Oh my God. That's
so
very funny.
yeah. So
No,
working for home builders was a great experience.
It sounds like it was. And now you worked with new development and that was all in Orange County. And if any of you are watching this and going, what is Orange County? It is the very conservative arm of Southern California, and where a lot of Republicans are, where a lot of very conservative supporters are, as well as very conservative values. And I want to say their values. So you attracted people into these home tracts that would now live in these homes, raise their families in their homes, and send them to the Bible schools like Biola College, or going to McKenna College, or some of the other universities that have really gotten quite a bit of attention. Chapman College, for instance, and and hey, shall we not forget Disneyland, because that is where Disneyland is, and
Absolutely.
and all the
Absolutely.
entertainment that you've got for amusement parks. Now, what made you morph down and out of these developments and into senior housing and the senior needs that people have today?
It's interesting, and that's a really good question. And by the way, I didn't only work in Orange County. The builders who I worked for, Shea Homes, for example, brought me to their regional area in San Jose. So I worked in several places throughout the state of California.
That's great. So
It's
you
been
became
great experience.
familiar with the corporate culture of what they would tolerate, what they wouldn't tolerate, what their policies were, what warranties would look like. Because if these are all new homes, I don't care if you have a brand new home, there's always something that didn't get done, that didn't get finished, that needs fixing, that broke before it was supposed to, and they're under warranty. So you are getting these phone calls as well as fielding the phone calls for people wanting a home.
Absolutely. So, and of course, the technology was very different then. We didn't have the online sales that we do now. But back to your question. So actually, I was working for a premier home builder in Southern California, and the builder isn't around anymore, so I couldn't mention his name, but it was a premier builder, and I learned so much from him. But I was his sales manager, and he didn't want a female sales manager. He didn't want me when I was hired.
Wait a minute.
And he didn't
You're
want
like
me
the
to
top
step in.
person, and he doesn't want you because of your gender. Are you
Absolutely.
freaking kidding
Absolutely.
me?
So I was terminated. He had his attorney come in and tell me that they didn't want me because I was a female, and they did replace me with a
Did
man.
you say I can't do anything about that? God made me this way.
He did. So no. So it was. But as you said, there's always another door that opens. So at that point in time, Linda, we as new home salespeople, we were taking the loan applications, and we were in this. My salespeople were involved in processing the mortgages. So I had an experience with that. So I called my loan officer and I said, I want to go into the mortgage business. And if you don't if you don't hire me, I'm going to go out and compete against you.
There you go. That sounds like a playbook out of that is a page out of my own book. I used that many times to talk myself into a job.
Yep. So he did bring me into the mortgage business, and eventually then I was doing 500 loans a year with a team of 3 people. And I started my own mortgage company then eventually, which then brought me into, because I was doing the loans, it only made sense that I started selling houses to those people also, because at that point in time I had a real estate license. So then I had a lead generation program where I generated leads. We got the people pre-qualified and we sold them homes, which was great fun. And then we had short sales and we sold those homes again.
So it's also cyclical, isn't it? So you get into a house that you can't afford, and then when you can't keep it because you can't afford it, we're going to short sell it because of what the market did. We are on top of that kind of a market again, like we were in 2008. And if anybody is watching this, they're thinking, well, how long can this, this run back up last? Because I don't know about you, Valerie, but I feel like, our numbers went crazy up to about 2006 and 7, and then we crash. And then we go right back at it. 4 years later, it's like we're on halcyon. We have no recollection, no memory of what the pain of a market that depressed, a market that fell out. And yet we think we're insulated like this because the banking industry is what took us into that recession by overextending. And now they said, okay, well, we shored that up. We were too big to fail. So neener, we survived. And we now have safety valves in this for lending. I'm going somewhere with this. Stay with me, Valerie. And now with all of the properties that have this requirement for 10, 20, 25% down that was required after the last recession, we don't have that anymore. You can get into a house for 3% down if you're a veteran. You can get in for 10% if you get, and some of those loans have disappeared, but I think that the reason why those disappeared is because we're headed into some strong headwinds coming up over the next year. That's when things like short sales happen. And I'm going to take you on a journey with this because the life expectancy today is so much longer than it was, like, say, even 50 years ago, 40 years
Absolutely.
ago, right? Where the average lifespan for a female was 78 years old. Today it's 83 and 85 years old. Men are dropping before that, by the way, guys. So if you're listening, take care of yourself. Take real good care of yourself. But when you live way beyond that life expectation, maybe you had things like, I don't know, term life policy that termed out because you outlived it, or you outlived some of the things, that you relied on. Because money just, as they say in the song, there's too much month at the end of the money, right?
Absolutely, yes.
And so seniors are going to get caught up in this trap. Some of the tools that are available are not really a good solution for everyone. Can you talk about some of those solutions? Somebody wants to stay in their home.
That's a great question. And that is a real issue. In fact, I had it on my podcast this week. We were talking about that. Actually, that's the thrust of my show. And we know that 11,000 people a day are turning 65. So the senior population is going to continue to grow for a long time. And we know that 90% of the people don't want to move. No. They want to stay in their homes. Now, a lot of them will move, but they don't want to. They've grown, they've brought their family up in those homes, and they wanted to stay in those homes. So what's happened is we have a whole new business of aging in place. And aging in place doesn't have to be in that home.
Now, let's talk about the alternative. You don't want to age in place, and maybe the kids don't want to take care of you, or but some things are just not an option, right? So let's say, for instance, my mom is blind. She can't live on her own. She went blind about 5 years ago, 100% blind. Now, she was pretty mad about it, and we figured out, some alternatives to keeping her in the home. But there are things like isolation and loneliness and other things that they never really had to battle before. They outlived their friends, and now they're looking at assisted living care, and most of them are institutionally run, and they're not great options because most people that move into them are checking out for a 6 foot under new location about a year or two less, or less than 2 years. And so those options are not good for them. They say, oh, I have to eat on their schedule. I have to eat what they serve me. Their quality of life goes down. So what are some of the things that seniors can be doing to be thinking about having the best life ever, staying in place, and living the kind of life that they want to live out on their retirement?
And a lot of things can do is there's a business called age tech, and age tech is things like we were talking about this at home this morning. The grab bars now aren't the old people's grab bars. Now they have decorative grab bars and decorative railings that go along your wall. So it doesn't look like someone's walking into your house and it looks like an old people's home. Right? Nobody wants to live like that. Correct. So this business of aging in place is a whole industry, and there are so many companies that are creating products for that, and things that you can do, adjust your shower, or adjust, instead of the 2 stairs up to the front door, there are ramps that aren't just the old plywood ramps that you and I would have seen 20, right, 30, 40 years ago. But all of these things are being developed because of this whole population of people who are older. And it's amazing the things that they're creating and that they're designing. And also then there's multi-gen homes where maybe you don't have, and also in the state of California, where it's so much easier to build an ADU. Correct. And have it in. So it used to be you only could have a granny flat. We'd call them a granny flat, right? If you had this huge ranch. But now you can build an ADU and have it only 4 feet away from the lot line, which is really close. So the opportunities to adding those people. In fact, I've heard stories of where people add an ADU and they move into it, and they move their mom into their house or their dad.
Funny.
So it's a whole nother industry, a whole nother business.
It really is. Now, besides having safety things that, in the cottage industry, what are some of the other things that are coming along for seniors that give them a little bit more optimism so they can stay in the home safely?
Well, a couple of things. First of all, there's two types of people who can come to help you. One is home care, and the other is home health care. So if you don't have, like my mom doesn't have a health problem, bless her heart. And so but she's lonely, like you said. It's the companionship, it's the socialization. She misses not having people around, but she doesn't want to go into assisted living. So you can have someone come and just keep them company, take them places. And there's more bus systems and places that are now available that will take them wherever they want to go. And the senior centers are much more have more programs for people. So the other thing is that there's a system where you or I could program our parents' television and help them see something. So if we see a movie, or we want them to see something, like my mom to watch the opening of the Olympics, but she doesn't know how to get it in her TV. We can do that from our homes. So those are things that we can do.
Oh, that's really neat. Who offers that up?
I think it's a company called Jubilee TV. And I know that there's another company that does it also. But I think that's really cool. And from a safety standpoint, there's a myriad of things. Like you install cameras over the stove to make sure the stove is always turned off. They don't walk off and leave the stove. Or things like if your mom always goes out and opens the door and lets the dog out before 8 o'clock, and at 8 o'clock the door hasn't been opened yet, an alarm goes off, your mom hasn't gone outside yet. So all of that, it's unimaginable, all the things that are being created for that. But also then there's other activities. There's a online group, actually a company that you can go online and create if you want a wine club or a gardening club. All of those things that are virtual groups only for people in their later years.
Oh, that's nice. And that totally builds community. There are so many awful things that COVID did, but one of the things it did was that I think is pretty positive was made it more acceptable to be virtual, to be able to connect with other people without having to go see them. Right. And now that we're running a new run on COVID now, another pass, but hopefully not as deadly and devastating as it was before, since we've got, vaccinations for this type of thing. But so the cases are milder and not as devastating. But nonetheless, even though we can go out, and we were quite anxious to go out after the 2 years of being cooped up. But after that, it was like, no, I want to go out. But there are a lot of us that said, hey, I could still get out. I could still connect. I don't have to go someplace. And you're just telling me that there is now a whole reach out of a community that can connect seniors that would be shut in, that need the socialization, because them sitting and communicating with the television is not communicating. It's not a place for them to get socialization or to get the support that they need to have to avoid the consequences of loneliness. What are some of the things that you advise your clients when they're thinking about selling their real estate? They're up in their senior years now. What are some of the alternatives that a senior might want to consider when there are so many consequences of selling your house? As you well know, that if we go to retire, the IRS is so delighted that when we're retiring, they get to retire right along with us and take 39% of our capital gains. And for a lot of seniors, where they might have purchased the home for $30,000, today it's worth $900,000. Then the IRS is going to take a good portion of that and whack at it. And then, the seniors thinking about, I need to live longer so I can give this to my kids. And the plan was never to retire with the IRS. What are some of the alternatives that you're talking to your clients about?
Well, another thing about that, Linda, is that when you talk about giving homes to their kids, but now if you do that your taxes get raised, right? It used to be that you could keep your property taxes the same. But now, because of the new props, that if you give your house to your child, then they have to take a new tax base. They can't just take your old property tax.
If they live in it, that's not accurate. If they don't live in it and they rent it out, yes, that's absolutely true. And in fact, some of my clients, my oldest client was 106 and he passed away a little over a year ago.
Oh my goodness.
And he was still active as an investor up until his hundreds, right? and then his son took over. But when he passed, the estate got reassessed.
Right.
And, this was a pretty substantive estate. And so all of a sudden you're looking at, okay, I can inherit all of this, but the tax consequences are considerable after the first 5 million. So the first 5 million is, your own. You have an estate that's worth 20 million or more than that.
Right.
You're going to get taxed on not only the capital gains, but you're also going to get reassessed. So there are lots of tax consequences, and I know that you've got some alternatives that we're going to talk about.
And there are. So one is you can invest in a DST, for example. There's other things that you can do.
Delaware Trust, right?
Right, which you can do. But another thing, and back to your point also of things that are available because of COVID, is now we all send food to people's homes, right? We have Instacart, which delivers groceries. We have food, which gets delivered. So that helps people who want to stay in place, but they can't go out as much. And so if they want to stay there or they don't want to, then it's time to consider the alternatives. So one thing is to have a consultant come in, and there are people like us who will go into a home and make recommendations of what things could you do to stay here? What are the things that are a problem? And what can we do to help with that? And then decide if that makes financial or emotional sense to them, if that's what they want to do. And another thing is, of course, there's assisted living, there's independent living, there's board and care, depending on their physical situation.
But these things are very costly.
They are costly.
They are not cheap. They are, for a person that's lived in their home for 50 years, they're not going to want to go move into a facility with other people that they don't, they really have to be driven towards it, or the kids have to say, I don't want to do this anymore. Talk about our sandwich generation for a second.
I certainly am that in more than one way. So my mom is 104. She lives by herself. There's nothing wrong with her except she has a bad knee. If you ask her where she was the second Tuesday of May in 1939, she can tell you, and she'll tell you who was in the room with her. She was married 78 years. She's one of 16 children and the only one still alive. So I have no reason to believe that I'm going to die in my 70s or 80s, and we certainly hope not.
Right.
Hope not. And I hope my mom doesn't outlive me. So I am with that. And then I have my own children under me. So the sandwich generation, that's a good question, because so many of us didn't think our parents would live this long. My dad died 7 years ago the day before his 99th birthday. So I thought after that, my mom would pass away because she'd been with my dad for 78 years. What would she do without dad? Didn't matter. She's just still going right along. She beats me walking down the aisle at Trader Joe's.
Oh, that's funny.
She is funny. She's hysterical. So because of that, we are the adult children of aging parents. And this is a whole nother issue because we didn't plan on it. And it affects our travel. It affects our lives. And then some of us are fortunate enough that our parents don't live with us, but some of us, we feel that we need to. So we have this always ageless generation. So then you have to decide, what do you want to do? Do you want to move your parents in with you? Or do you want to create an ADU type of situation? Do you want to move in with them? And some people worry a lot more about their parents and they don't want to leave them alone. I'm not quite as worried because my mom's pretty strong. Another option is to have a home care person come in so many hours a day or so many hours a week and just keep them company and make sure, help with laundry and take them out for a walk or take them to the senior center, but just drive them there to take part in activities.
Sure.
Do puzzles and do things like that and just keep their mind and their body moving and doing things. And that's certainly an alternative. And for us, we decided that it's a lot less expensive than going into assisted living, although there's a place for assisted living for a lot of people. But
sure, there is a time for that, especially if there is memory care involved or disabilities of some type that keeps them from being able to do certain things. But, like you said, your mom is very active. She knows where she was in 1939 and how many people she was with and exactly what she was doing. My mom is exactly the same. She keeps saying, I got to die of something, but I'm so darn healthy.
I know. You know what my mom says? I think that I'm here because I think God wants me here for a reason. I don't know what it is yet.
Oh my goodness.
I think he keeps me alive for a reason, but I don't know what that is. Isn't that funny?
And it's not torture. And trust me, the parents don't want to live with the kids. The kids are thinking, oh my God, what am I going to do? And mom lives with me. But, moms or dads, whoever they are, really want their independence as long as they can have their independence. There's so many tools and things that people have today that, I told my mom after I gave her an iPhone, I said, you're so happy with Siri because you got somebody to tell what to do, right? And they're happy with it if they get a question answered. They've got a query. They can stay in touch. They can do the things that they want to do. Valerie, how do we get in touch with you?
I can be reached on my phone, which is 714-334-9156, or my email is on your screen. It's Valerie@valeriev.com. And I would love to help anybody who's either in our situation as the adult children of aging parents, or help our parents make those decisions. Linda, there are a lot of us who aren't as fortunate as we are, who live close to our parents. A lot of people will reach out to me and they're in New York, their mom's in California or in Arizona, and they don't know what to do. So just a consulting, someone to talk to them. And the other issue that that we have, of course, is senior scams and senior fraud.
Oh my God, listen, I almost got caught in one and it sounded so real. Holy cow, if I hadn't called my brother and asked him to, loan me $15,000 so I wouldn't be arrested. I'm a smart person. And he was like, think about it. Think about how unreasonable, and it sounded good. It was a total scam.
With AI, the voices are going to be even more real.
Well, yeah, because you can actually mimic somebody else's and you can ask them questions. Hi, I'm your nephew.
Absolutely.
And they sound just like your nephew because now those voices are being generated by AI. So
part of
the scams.
Right. So part of our job is also to protect them from scams.
So the name of the business again, Valerie?
Your business. Always Ageless. But my real estate business is I am a real estate broker with Real Broker. And it's actually called Real Broker.
So there really is a real broker.
There really is a real broker. We're a publicly traded company, the fastest growing company in the United States.
Some of the final questions. When somebody realizes that they can't be in their home, do you actually help them connect with a DST or with a reverse mortgage? That seems to be like an alternative that most seniors think about if they want to stay in their home. Have we hit on all those potential alternatives?
I think, Linda, that reverse mortgage is one of the most misunderstood alternatives that there is. There are so many people that do not understand it, that say things like, the government's going to take my house. And it's such a great alternative that people don't understand. And it really bothers me when I hear that. And it makes me really sad to see people who are all of a sudden in a situation where they've lost their spouse and they don't know what to do. And they think they can't afford their house. And a real estate agent comes along and says, no problem, I'll sell it for you. When in fact they could have stayed there.
They could have taken out a reverse mortgage. And the reverse mortgage is not giving you the 100% of the value of your home. It's assessing what the value of the home is worth. And depending on the amount of equity, they're going to loan a percentage up to that equity that's in it. When you've gone through that money, and they're not cheap, okay? They are really not cheap. But if that's your alternative to a higher expense, and you have to ask your professionals, get your advice from your professionals on your finances and on your legal matters. This is not legal or financial advice, but this is just a discussion about some of the alternatives that you should have and you should be thinking about.
Absolutely.
And the alternatives with this, you know, when you understand that, yeah, it might cost a little bit more for a reverse mortgage, and then you take that out, but you don't use all of that money because, well, you didn't outlive the money that was there, and you've now gone to the other side. Your heirs and your estate will pay off that note just like a mortgage when you go to sell the house. So
if there's enough equity, and if there's not enough equity, the government just absorbs that.
Isn't that amazing?
It is amazing. It is amazing. So it may cost you more to originate the loan, but if you pass away, and let's say, for example, you borrowed $500,000 and you owe on the reverse mortgage, you now owe $600,000. That just gets eaten up by the government. So it's a great program for some people, and I think it would be nicer if people knew about that before they sold their home. To know, and even though I am a real estate broker, and we're happy to help them sell their home, but that may not always be something. But the other thing they can do, and I think people don't realize this, is you can use a reverse mortgage to buy your next home. And so you can buy another home without any payments on it. So if you feel you need or want to sell your current home, you can buy another house. We did that with a family here where they just couldn't handle the taxes and the payments that they had on their home. We sold it here in Orange County and moved them out to Hemet, where they bought a house with a reverse mortgage. All they have to pay is their taxes and their association dues, and they're all set. No payments.
So now how does that work? If you're going to get a reverse mortgage, if they sold the house, there was some value in the house that they sold.
Right.
Assuming.
Well, there was more value than there was a loan, yes.
More value than there was a loan. So they had borrowed on it, but so they didn't really have enough to buy a house, but they had enough to buy the house with the down payment, just not enough to support the mortgage. Is that right?
Right. They couldn't qualify for a mortgage. The husband was on disability. The wife was on Social Security. They didn't have income to qualify for a loan.
Right.
But they had enough money for a down payment, so they could move to Hemet, and they put 50% down out of the proceeds of their home in Orange County. They put 50% down, got a reverse mortgage for the difference, and they have no house payments.
That's got to be a good feeling for them, that they still had control of their life. They had control of their destiny as much as they could see their destiny. And at the end of life, if they outlived they exceeded the value of the home in the reverse mortgage, well, so be it. But, you know, the government looked at it too and said, hey, you've got 50% of equity. So you're basically borrowing against the equity in your home.
Right. That's exactly right. That's exactly right.
Wow, there's some great programs available. I can't believe that we're out of time, Valerie, but I really want to thank you for the knowledge and the expertise that you bring to the table, and the fact that there's so many alternatives, ageless. So thank you for joining us today.
Thank you very much for having me.
My
Bye-bye.
pleasure. Thank you. And that's it. That's another show today. And wouldn't you just love to have had all of this information when you were making decisions about your parents' home, or decisions about, you know, a friend's home, or other things that, well, gee, this getting old is not for sissies, is it? It comes with a lot of complications, and understanding how many options and alternatives you had is really key to your having control of your life and having that financial freedom that we all want to have, that says, I can do this, I can do hard things, and I've got this. So stay with us and join us again next week when we have another really good guest to talk about how you can manage and spread that money and make it grow. Thanks again. Do you like to talk about money? If you do and you'd like to be a guest, contact me at lindak360.com.